Hello, this is Aaron, and today I'm going to teach you a little bit about how the bidding system works in the game of Hungarian Tarokk. So if you've never played this game before, I'd recommend going back and watching my first video, which explains the general rules and how the game works. This video is part 2, so basically explaining the bidding conventions, which is an important part of the game also. Just a quick note before I start that this is actually version 2 of the video. I've added in a couple of suggestions from Robert Kovac, so hopefully everything is now all correct. Thank you. Hungarian Tarokk is basically a 4-player game. Here we have at the table János, Dave, who's visiting Hungary from England, Hannah and Sylvia. Sylvia is going to be the dealer for all the hands I do today to keep things simple. There's a couple of ways that you can deal, but most traditional is to deal 6 into the middle of the table as the talon first, and then in an anti-clockwise direction 5 each and then 4 each, so that each player has 9 cards. You then inspect your hand and decide if it's strong enough for you to want to bid to be the taker. Now, an important detail is that you need one of the trull cards, either the 1, the 21 or the fool, in order to be allowed to bid at all. For example, in this hand you hold the skis, the fool, so you're allowed to bid. But in this hand, you don't hold the skis or the 21 or the 1, the pagat, so you can't bid on that one. The player immediately to the dealer's right always bids first. János here bids 3, saying that he wants to take 3 cards from the talon and be declarer. Dave passes, Hannah passes, Sylvia also passes. So the game is János's. He takes the top 3 cards from the talon. Dave, Hannah and Sylvia get 1 each from the remainder in that order. And then everyone discards the same number of cards that they picked up. János's cards will counter his tricks. The other 3 will counter the defense tricks. János will then call the 20 as his secret partner. Now, most of the time, even if you've got a pretty strong hand, you open the bidding with 3. So in this hand, János says pass. Dave bids 3. Dave's got a pretty good hand. Hannah's also got a pretty good hand and bids 2. At this point, Dave says, no, I want to be declarer here. Sylvia passes. János has already passed, so he can't bid again. And Dave says hold, meaning he is holding Hannah's bid of 2. At this point, Hannah passes. Dave is the declarer in a game of 2, picks up the top 2 cards from the talon, and the remainder of the talon is distributed to the other 3 players as evenly as possible, with any extra cards going to the person to the right of the declarer in preference. The exact process is shown here. In a game of 3, the declarer takes the top 3 cards, and then in anti-clockwise order, the next player takes 1, the next player takes another 1, and then the last player takes the final 1. In a game of 2, the declarer takes 2, the second player also takes 2, third player takes 1, and the fourth player takes the last 1. In a game of 1, the declarer takes the top card from the talon, the next player takes the next 2, the third player takes the next 2, and the fourth player takes the last 1. And then, in a game of solo, the declarer takes no cards, the second player takes the top 2, the third player takes the next 2, and the fourth player takes the final 2. This next example shows something called a yielded game. János is going to open the bidding with 3. Dave passes. Hannah raises the bid with 2. Then Sylvia also passes. Now, János could hold and be the declarer, but instead he's passed. Now, this means that he holds the 20 and he wants Hannah to call him as her partner. So Hannah is now the declarer in a game of 2. János is guaranteeing that he holds the 20 and also a high honour, either the 21 or 22. So as you've gathered, each bid needs to be higher in value than the previous. So if someone's already bid 3, you have to bid 2, or you have to bid 1. Here, János has passed. Dave has jumped straight to solo. The highest value bid that there is solo, which means he's not going to take anything from the talon. Bidding stops immediately because no one can outbid that. So if you've already bid and then someone outbids you, the next time it comes around to you, you can say hold, which means that you're going to equal the bid the other person has done. So here János bid 3, Dave has bid 2, and then Hannah has passed. But Sylvia jumps in and bids 1. Now János would have to either hold it and saying he's also bidding 1, or Dave here has passed. Sylvia has jumped to solo, so outbidding again. János can then say hold because he had already bid, and therefore János is now the declarer in a game of solo. Normally people just bid the next value bid in sequence, 3, then 2, then 1, then solo. But here Janos bids 3, Dave passes, Hannah also passes, and Sylvia bids 1. So she's actually jumped over the bid of 2. When you jump over a bid in value, basically you are saying that you hold the 19 and want to be called as partner. Janos then bids solo, meaning he's the declarer, and he is obliged to call Sylvia as his partner. So he'll call the 19 and they'll play as a team. Moving on from that, it's important to know that increasing the bid where you could have just held is also a jump bid showing that you've got the 19. So here, Dave has bid 3, Janos passed. Hannah bids 2, Sylvia also passes. Janos is already out because he didn't bid before. Dave has gone to 1. Instead of just holding, he's bid 1. So that's actually a jump, therefore he holds the 19. Hannah then holds. So Hannah is the declarer in a game of 1. And Dave is called as her partner with the 19. Now, when I originally posted this video, a few people asked about this specific hand. There's a variation in the rules here where some people will play that you can only hold if you were earlier in the bidding sequence than another person. So Janos could hold anyone else's bid, but Dave could only hold a bid by Hannah or Sylvia. Hannah could only hold a bid by Sylvia, and Sylvia couldn't hold anyone's. So under those rules, Hannah could not hold Dave's bid of 1. She would have to go to solo if she wanted to take it on. These days, most people play that as long as you've bid something, you're allowed to hold after that, but there's still quite a few who play the old rule, including, I think, the rules on the BoardGameArena.com implementation, so be aware of that one. Moving on from that, if you make a bid which is too higher in the sequence than what you would normally bid there, this is showing that you hold the 18 and want to be called as partner. So Janos bids 3, Dave jumps over 1 straight to solo. This means Dave holds the 18 and wants Janos to call him as his partner. So Janos holds, he becomes the declarer in a game of solo and calls the 18, so he's calling Dave to be his partner. Now, like I said before, no matter how good your hand is, usually you open with 3 because otherwise you can accidentally invite someone to call you as partner, which you didn't intend. Now there, Janos opened the bidding with 2. That means Janos holds the 19 and wants to be called as partner. Dave and Hannah both passed. Sylvia bid 1, which is the next one available. So Sylvia becomes the declarer in a game of 1 and calls Janos, so calls the 19 to be her partner. Some people ask, though, in that situation, can you just open with a 2, even if it's not an invitation of someone to call you? And the answer is yes. I mean, sometimes you have a hand that looks like this one, where you've just got a heap of Tarocks, and you don't want to pick up anything from the talon. Now, in that case, maybe not that exact hand, but in a similar case, Janos could open with 2, which makes most people think that he's going to have the 19. He didn't. And then Hannah has their bid 1, assuming that he's made an invitation. Janos actually cancels the invitation by holding. At this point, if Hannah passes, then Janos will be the declarer in a game of 1 and will probably call the 20 to be his partner. Sometimes you'll make an invitation for someone to call you as their partner, holding the 19. Janos here bids 2, which means he has a 19, wants to be called as partner. Dave bids 1, and then Hannah decides, no, I want to take on Janos as partner, so she bids solo. Sylvia can't bid here because there's nothing higher than solo for her to bid. Janos passes. Dave thinks about it. He could hold, but he passes. So Hannah has won the bidding. She is the declarer in a game of solo and calls the 19, which is Janos, as her partner. Here's a hand where someone tries to make an invitation saying they hold the 19, and then someone else throws a bit of a spanner in the works. Janos bids 3, Dave passes, Hannah bids 1, meaning Hannah has the 19 and wants to be called by Janos as partner. Sylvia messes with them by bidding solo, so Sylvia obviously has a pretty good hand too. Janos says hold, so he's holding the solo. There's nothing higher than that. Janos is the declarer in a game of solo and calls Hannah, who has the 19, as his partner. Of course, if everyone else has already passed, you can jump to whatever you want to increase the value of the game, and it's not an invitation of anything, because there's no one else who can call you as partner anyway. Here, Janos, Dave, Hannah all passed. Sylvia says, oh, bugger it, I will just bid 1, because that's worth more points than bidding 3 or 2. Jump straight in. She's the declarer in a game of 1 and calls someone the 20 as her partner. That's all from me for today. Hopefully that helped out if you are just learning the game now. If you want to learn more, visit pagat.com, which has the rules for basically every card game that's ever existed and lots of really great stuff on Hungarian Tarokk, or drop us a line through the YouTube channel, and I can invite you to the Discord and we can hook you up for some practice games online. Okay, thanks. See you next time.